Good evening, everyone. Welcome to episode 88 of the Below the Yellow Line podcast. I'm your host, Joe Landy Pavlon. Justin Hemmert's with me tonight.
Yep.
Danny will be back next week. He stepped out for this one. Are there any words to describe what you saw on the racetrack over in Bahrain once again?
It was interesting. And the short circuit, with interesting moments between F1 and F2. It was an interesting race, and races were all interesting. Snowball Derby was interesting. It was a good weekend.
Yeah, great weekend for first-time winners, and just how do you work? It was very enriching. If you're a race fan, like we are, that was the kind of weekend that and you look back on and just say, wow, how did this happen? Well, how did things happen? The Sakhir Grand Prix, the penultimate race of the 2020 Formula One World Championship. Usually around this time of the season, teams go about their business and they come and go. They just focus on finishing strong. But I think we at least expected everything that happened. And really, it started by the time we went off air just about 4 hours later on Monday night, heading into Tuesday. Lewis Hamilton tested positive, out of the ride.
Yeah. And then Mercedes didn't announce their driver. We're all wondering who's going to drive. Yeah.
And then George Russell had the greatest grant any driver can hope for, driving the best car in a Grand Prix.
Yeah.
And he fulfilled those expectations, and it just felt shocking. The Mercedes team made a mistake on pit road, and we'll get that as we look at the results for the Sakhir Grand Prix. The second week in a row, they raced the Bahrain International Circuit for the first time, the outer circuit, which resulted in very fast times.
Yeah.
53 seconds was the pole time.
Yep. Yeah, and it was a fast track. People said, people called it an oval, but it's not people that don't watch NASCAR, they call it an oval, but us, we know that it's not an oval. We know what an oval is. But it was an interesting race. I know people it was late for people in the UK. It was at 5 p.m. over there. Well, over here it was at a good time for people that usually don't wake up for races.
Right. Easter time for Americans.
Yeah. But Abu Dhabi's not going to be the same thing. That's at 8:05 a.m.
8:05 is not too bad.
It's better than when they raced at China when it was at 2 a.m. Eastern. Those races are more tough when they're not.
Yeah, tough for us. Past that time.
Yeah.
So the Sakhir Grand Prix for the penultimate race of the 2020 World Championship, won by, how fitting, Sergio Perez.
Oh my!
The driver from Mexico we call Checo, been around for almost 10 years in motorsport's highest level, finally wins a Formula One Grand Prix.
Yep.
And the one thing that eluded Sergio Perez, going 0 for 190, and now a chance that he got late in the race when Russell had that puncture just as he was catching up to Perez on older tires.
Yeah. Which I'm that was good for Sergio, and Racing Point's first one, and that's what Racing Point needed. I remember you were talking about can Racing Point get double points? Well, they got a double podium, so that helps them for third place in the constructors right now.
First time in the constructors' history that they finished on had both cars on the podium. But Perez led 24 laps in the race. He led the final 24 laps of the Grand Prix, started fifth, was involved in that first lap contact. We will discuss that as we go down the results later.
Yeah.
In the podcast. Perez picked up his first career win and his 10th career podium. Just for these numbers that Checo's had for all these years, going back to 2012. And I just remember saying in 2012, like, just as a younger kid, like, one day he's going to win a Grand Prix. Lewis Hamilton going to Mercedes resulted in Sergio Perez going to McLaren Mercedes. At the time, they were a competitive team. And I thought for sure the success that Checo had in 2012 would translate over to McLaren. Everything that was the opposite happened instead. He went to Force India.
But McLaren was actually kind of dipping in performance around those years. And then they went with Honda in 2015, which at least McLaren, they rebounded from when they were with the slow Hondas 2015, 2016, 2017. Those were the worst years for McLaren.
Absolutely, but in 2013, the story was a little different. The driver who replaced Lewis Hamilton just didn't seem that it worked out, and I still disagree that they let go of Checo this early, but knowing where McLaren was heading towards in the next few years, I think that was the best thing that happened to him. Maybe the worst thing that happened to him. Force India was always a subpar team. You might see a few podium appearances here and there during their history before Racing Point bought them out in 2018. Checo has never left that organization until next year. He is out of that program. When they rebrand to Aston Martin Racing F1 and put Sebastian Vettel in his place for 2021. Sergio Perez's victory is the end of a record-breaking number, most starts without in a Formula One career without a win. 60 wins over Mark Webber's record that was broken. Webber had 130 entries in Formula One before his first Grand Prix win. And Sergio Perez exceeded that by 60, and it's just satisfying for a driver like Perez. And also the Mexican fan base here, they have been longing for a driver to represent their country on the world's highest level.
It's been a while since a Mexican driver has won an F1 race. Who was this?
50 years and only one driver in 2 races. That was Pedro Rodriguez, and the very tragic story of the Rodriguez brothers when Ricardo Rodriguez, at the age of 20 in 1962, lost his life in an accident driving a race car, which was sadly the common ground for motorsport at the time. If you watch the podcast last week, we highlighted safety in motorsport, and there's an example. And about 10 years later, Pedro lost his life in a racing accident, but not without 2 wins in Formula One: 1967 South African Grand Prix and the 1970 Belgian Grand Prix. 50 years and 2 wins. And Mexico has a lot of successful race car drivers. Each and every year. I can name a few people on that list. Let's start with Mimo Rojas, endurance racing driver, Adrian Fernandez, Jorge Guedes, Daniel Suarez in NASCAR. And Sergio Perez. But at the same time, no one has really been able to fill in the shoes of the Rodriguez brothers. And the Hermanos Rodriguez, if you know the track in Mexico City, is called Hermanos Rodriguez, named after the 2 brothers who careers were cut short by tragedy. So it's just a very, very meaningful win with so many ways. That 87 laps saw a lot of action on the track, and it doesn't stop there. The podium consists of career best finishes for each driver. Second place, Esteban Ocon. How about this? Ocon, first career podium in his first appearance on the podium. His career best finish of second, driving for Renault. started 11th in the race. Great run for the French driver.
Yeah.
Ocon is somewhat in the same position, was in the position that Perez might be in next year, which is not having a seat in Formula One when people, whether they like the driver or not, agree that deserve to be in a seat. Let's say he deserves to be in a seat. And I said that a lot last year on those podcasts. Where's Ocon? Why is he a test driver? Someone get a ride, and now he has that ride and lived up to those expectations.
Yeah, I remember people always criticized Ocon for the people. Red Bull fans are still criticizing Ocon from 2018 with contact with Max, but Ocon is a solid driver. He's not he's not Daniel Ricciardo but he's still getting points. He's getting points. He's getting good finishes. He's also helps with the double points for Renault, which really helps Renault in the long run.
Absolutely, and that's where we'll lead our next discussion in the championships here. The Constructors' Championship is not over for those three constructors in the battle for third place honors. Third place, Lance Stroll, finished third for the third time.
Yeah,
in his F1 career. Second with Racing Point, that Lance Stroll will step on the podium. Stroll started 10th, and that means Racing Point gets not only double points, but double podium. First ever time. Now, when we were on the podcast last week, the discussion about Racing Point is how did they lose third in the Constructors? Can they even have a chance to rebound and defeat McLaren?
Yeah. But
go on, Justin.
We didn't expect to see what happened. I remember I said they can, they have a chance. I remember I kept saying they have a chance to get a double points, which end up a double podium. It's we just didn't know because how they didn't perform that good at. They performed kind of good at Bahrain Grand Prix, but
they were excellent 4th and 5th for McLaren last week.
And this week they finished first and third. Well, they were ahead of the McLarens.
Racing Point.
Yeah, and this time Lance Stroll did not flip over, so he survived the race, and good run for the Racing Points. First and third really helps them.
Absolutely. I did want to mention that even if the Racing Point drivers didn't end up on the podium, or Checo ended up not winning the race, knowing how this event yesterday was about speed and power, that since they're under the Mercedes engine plant, that Racing Point would still have that advantage. I made a prediction that Hamilton would win the race, but he wasn't in the race.
Me too.
But who would finish second and third? And I mentioned a Racing Point driver being on the podium, as it sounded a little more realistic. A driver like Max Verstappen might have had to do work. We didn't see him, over half the first lap because he was involved in an accident.
Oh yeah.
But I would have really, I really wish I could have seen how Verstappen's Red Bull Honda would have performed at the circuit.
But it was interesting how Albon said, "We have a good car, but we have no pace." I remember Albon saying that. I'm like, okay, that's not good when you're saying our car is good, but no pace. That's not good when you have no pace on a fast track. You don't want that to happen.
Fourth place. That's the podium's fourth place in the Grand Prix. Carlos Sainz doing everything he can to salvage a great points finish for McLaren, as when they entered the race, they were in front of Racing Point and Renault for third in the Constructors' Championship. Now they're 10 points behind Racing Point. We'll hold that discussion for later, but Carlos Sainz did a brilliant job. Daniel Ricciardo.
Yep, double points for Renault. Solid race.
Very solid. Ricciardo started 7th and finished in 5th. Just brilliant for the plus powerhouse teams in Formula One this past weekend. Alex Albon finished 6th. He started 12th and made it in points for Red Bull. Yeah. Danny Kvyat 7th. Kvyat's career is still up in question for next season.
Yeah, because there's still because I guess now that the Red Bull representatives they are usually the ones to announce if somebody's going to AlphaTauri, and also Tsunoda finished 3rd in points, so he could get a super license. So he's a question for that second AlphaTauri seat, but we'll see who goes to that seat.
All right, now here are the 2 drivers that were expected to finish 1st and 2nd. We'll start with Valtteri Bottas. Bottas was out there, led 4 laps, started 1st. His 16th career pole, and Mercedes got double points. 9th place, Russell, the driver who replaced the greatest driver in the current era, Lewis Hamilton, who tested positive for COVID-19, wasn't able to run the race. So they brought George Russell, who is a driver for Williams. Williams runs Mercedes engines. They're on the same umbrella.
Yep.
So they brought in Russell. I think that was a great pick. A lot of people were questioning who would replace Hamilton in the Mercedes. Like, could this be a ticket to victory, essentially? Names like Stoffel Van Dorn were in the mix. Nico Hulkenberg, and just a few others could possibly take over that ride.
Esteban Gutierrez was also, because they're the reserve drivers. But dude, like people were questioning about Russell. When Mercedes announced that Lewis Hamilton would not be racing, I actually thought, wait, I don't know. I got this prediction right about Russell being in the Mercedes and Jack Aitken going to the Williams. I got that correct, which I'm like, interesting. But I knew that the reason they picked George was because he was recently in an F1 car. I know the Mercedes is different than the Williams, but he knows how to race the car.
Yeah, and if you drive for a weak constructor like Williams, the goal for just getting points is a very tall order. Williams has 0 points. The only constructor of the 10 in the World Constructors Championship to score 0 points this season.
Yeah, and George, he was fast. People said after practice 1, it's a fluke. Practice 2, fastest. Practice 3 was 7 because they tested some things. Qualifying, 26 1,000ths of a second off the pole. He qualifies 2nd. He takes the lead in the first corner. He led 59 laps. He was just fast.
Right. And for Russell, he finally gets first career points, but if you drive for it like that for Mercedes, first points doesn't sound like an accomplishment at all. In fact, it was anything but an accomplishment. Russell was clearly defeated.
Yeah, he even said that he could have won the race. Even most drivers knew that he should have won the race. It's just the safety car. Like, if that safety car didn't come out, he would have won the race. Like, the safety car coming out for a front wing is usually not normal, but they throw a virtual safety car. But they throw a virtual safety car for a bigger wing, like a back wing on track's a virtual one. It's just something. Or another thing, Russell could have still won if he didn't get the puncture. If he didn't run over that piece of wing that Aitken left in the final corner, if he didn't run over it, he would have catched Perez. He kept catching him. He just kept gaining on that lead each time.
And the puncture happened.
Yeah, but he was I say he was the fastest Mercedes driver out of the whole weekend. Bottas had some fast laps, but then he would push too much and his tires would get worse than Russell. So I felt like Russell was like the better Mercedes driver. I know he didn't finish better than Bottas, but throughout the weekend, I would say Russell really did a good job. Even all the people at Mercedes even said he did a good job this weekend.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He passed my test. He passed a lot of critics' tests and proved many people wrong. Don't look away from George Russell. Just because you're in a weak car doesn't mean you're a bad driver. And for what he did, for what Russell did in his time with Williams, and if he returns next week, I mean, so be it. Was impressive even without getting points. Robert Kubica scored 1 point,
but
technicality at the German Grand Prix last year.
Yeah, if the Raikkonen and Giovinazzi would not get 30-second penalties, Williams would have had 0 points last year. Like, the Williams car, their best finish this year is 11th. Once with Russell, and Latifi's finished 11th like 3 to 4 times this year. So their best finish in a race is 11th. But their cars is just, the Williams car is not a performing car. It's not the older Williams, 2014 to 2016 Williams. Like, that Williams actually was decent. Like, they actually finished decent in points. 2017, that's where they started dwindling down. 2018, at least they got some points. 2019, that's where they really struggled.
Right, and let's not forget the change in business roles and management. Management changes definitely resulted in the winning performance of Williams. And I mean, I wouldn't be surprised in 2-3 years that team will have another name, possibly. But they do carry on the Williams legacy. George Russell, however, when he's moved up, called by Mercedes, the Mercedes AMG F1 constructor, to drive in place for Lewis Hamilton, there is a lot of pressure. And it seems like Russell handled that pressure very, very well. He was calm. He looked pretty content, didn't give in to all that media attention when you have a really, really high figure like Lewis Hamilton being sidelined and having to take his position.
Yeah.
If Russell won the Grand Prix,
my!
But if, I mean, he won a lot of fans. I think
Like,
Mercedes might have to question where will we bring this guy next year. There are other seats in different programs in Formula One outside of Mercedes, like the FDA Driver Academy or
because
Renault.
Like right now, George has a contract for 2021 only with Williams, but people were talking about even Toto said about possibly George being in Mercedes in 2022 because Valtteri only has a contract to 2021. Because George is in the Mercedes program, he tested for Mercedes many times, and in those tests he's been pretty fast, which George showed his pace all weekend, which it's like, I remember during like the weekend, like sometimes like you get calls at normal times of the night. Of all times, guess what time they called George up to drive at? They called him at 2 a.m. Like at 2 in the morning. So we got some sleep, and then they made like a deal with Williams for George to be in the car. They made a deal with the Williams team. Yeah, it was kind of interesting seeing all these things. He kept explaining like they had to get his seat for him because he's like Hamilton's like about 5'10", while George Russell's 6'2", so they had to adjust everything. So it was interesting hearing what George had to say about it, but he had a good race. The whole weekend, George had a solid race.
Absolutely solid. Now, what happened to Mercedes that hindered their drivers from possibly winning the Grand Prix?
That pit stop under the safety car. They had the thing that's a problem with F1 is when they have two cars pitting. Like, they have one car and then the other one behind. That's the thing. They put the tires on George's car. Then they got confused with Bottas's car. They kept putting the wrong tires on, which is just... And then George came in again for another set of tires, which... I'm like, he just got new sets. Why does he need another set of tires?
Different compounds on the same time.
He had a medium tire, and then they put another medium tire on it. It's like, what are you doing? I was just so confused just seeing that. I'm like,
assessed a monetary fine by the FIA for that.
Yeah, it was £200,000. Yeah, that's money, but they have money, obviously.
Yeah,
they have money from their winnings, and their cars are... And some person, because Lewis missed the race, somebody said, "Oh, the championship hunt is still alive." I'm like, it's not even close. No, it's like Lewis had 131 points over Bottas. It's now 127. Bottas only closed 4 points over the weekend. That's the only way that... So Hamilton only lost 4 points.
Yep, and lastly, in the points positions was Lando Norris for McLaren. McLaren gets double points, but 1 point might not be enough in this case. Norris did start 15th. He had a grid penalty after qualifying, and
so he started 19th and said he was 15th, but then he had an engine change like Fittipaldi, who he finished in the back. Yeah.
All right. So outside points, Pierre Gasly finished 11th after starting 9th, just shy of reaching in the points from yesterday's race. Sebastian Vettel no points for the 4-time world champion. Vettel started 13th, and he'll win one more time for Ferrari before he leaves. Then you have the Alfa Romeos, Antonio Giovinazzi 13th, and Kimi Räikkönen, the 2007 world champion, finished 14th. 15th, Kevin Magnussen.
Oh my gosh!
Ultimate race with Haas F1. Jack Aitken, in his debut, finished 16th. And Pietro Fittipaldi, the grandson of 2-time world champion Emerson Fittipaldi, finished 17th in his debut, filling in for the injured Romain Grosjean, and he'll be back next weekend to close the season. Romain Grosjean will not return this year.
Yeah, because he does have his burns, like you've seen his bandages, like you've seen it.
It's pretty unfortunate that that a veteran like Romain Grosjean would his career would possibly come to an end in Formula One that like it did. But there are rumors he might be at IndyCar next year or endurance racing. We'll see what happens.
And also, people have been like criticizing Grosjean, like crashing and stuff, but that he just can't race because of like last week we said it was a scary accident. And the safety in motorsports has improved.
Absolutely. The evolution of safety features have definitely demonstrated why drivers can walk away from these accidents like we saw last week. And it's unfortunate, Romain Grosjean won't be able to return. And on that note, but Pietro Fittipaldi, nice to see that last name return to Formula One. Nicholas Latifi retired after lap 52 when an oil leak happened on his Williams. He started 17th. Max Verstappen and Charles Leclerc were involved in the opening lap accident. Verstappen started 3rd. Leclerc started 4th. Now, Leclerc had surprisingly much faster performance and a little good pace there qualifying with that Ferrari.
Yeah. Yeah, he was actually... I remember hearing the reason he got that fast lap. He was in Max Verstappen's toe, so he caught his slipstream, so that really helped him. But, Leclerc made a mistake in turn 4. He locked up massively, that spun Perez out, but Max tried to avoid him, but he couldn't avoid him, and when he avoided him, he was sliding in the gravel trap, sending him into the wall. Yeah.
Not the way you want to start a race, but that is the nature of F1. Verstappen, however, I don't think he's mathematically able to catch Bottas for second.
Well, he can't, because remember, the thing was, Valtteri had to score at least. Valtteri had to score 15 points. He did not score 15. He only got, how much is it for 8? 4 points. Valtteri only scored 4 points, so it's still possible because Valtteri is 16 points ahead of Max. Max has 189 points. Valtteri has 205, so it's 16 points. So basically, Max has to make sure that Valtteri basically DNFs, like doesn't get points. But Abu Dhabi, the track is hard to pass. One thing, like last year at Abu Dhabi, Lewis led every lap. Last year, Abu Dhabi's not gonna be eventful compared to this track. Like Abu Dhabi's just hard.
I think Yasmari Circuit's not a bad track, but
there is, you see a couple opportunities to pass. There's places you can't even make a move. It's too hard to make a pass.
But hey, let's not forget Bottas won the race in 2017, and
yeah, but Lewis has won many races there. If Lewis is back, that's probably Lewis just saying goodbye, field. See you whenever. It's basically that. If he's cleared to race, he's gonna be fast.
Yep. All right, so the World Drivers' Championship with one more race remaining, as mentioned, Lewis Hamilton, the world champion, missed out on this one.
But
352 points stays, or nothing changes.
But except Bottas, actually, the only thing that Bottas gained was 4 points on Hamilton's lead. Other than gaining 4 points, nothing has changed. So Hamilton's still the champ because
he punched at
Turkey. Yeah, and people are saying that Bottas could get 100 points. I'm like, he can't get 100 points in a race. The most he could get, the most you could get is a fastest lap, which is a point plus 25 points. So you could get 26 points maximum. Other than that, you can't get that.
Second place in the World Drivers' Championship is Valtteri Bottas. Now, he's not mathematically clinched.
No.
Second place spot.
16 points between Max and Valtteri for second.
Third.
Valtteri just has to finish second. He just has to finish better than Max to get that second place in points.
So second and third are pretty close. Now, fourth place, the battle for fourth is still alive. Sergio Perez, of course, with that win, now has 125 championship points for fourth in the Drivers' Championship. 112 points for Daniel Ricciardo. And then with 98 points, sixth place, Charles Leclerc. That retirement has definitely hindered him from getting fourth. Now he's unable to get fourth, but could possibly get fifth. Something were to happen to Ricciardo in the final race.
Well, Renault does not want to think about any bad thoughts. No. Like 2018 when Hülkenberg was upside down on the first lap.
Seventh place, 1 point behind Leclerc, is Carlos Sainz. Now, Sainz has a big task in hand for McLaren. If you're the Renault or McLaren constructors, as well as Racing Point, it's not going to be as just much of a freebie as other drivers might think, because our position's on the line here.
Yeah.
Alex Albon, 93 points. Lando Norris, 87 points. And Lance Stroll, 74 points. Complete the top 10 of the World Drivers' Championship with one more race to go. And in the World Constructors' Championship, this is where the next conversation begins. Mercedes, they're locked up 540 points. Locked up for second at this point is Red Bull Racing. Yep. They can't get anywhere above or beneath.
They're just
82 points.
Yeah, they're just there like, yep, we're second. We can't catch Mercedes. Mercedes is like on another planet.
And third place. Now, this is where it gets interesting.
Yeah.
We've seen changes in these constructors and how they fluctuated. Racing Point, BWT Mercedes, they're back to third in the World Constructors' Championship, 194 points. That puts them 10 above McLaren. At 184 points. So they are 10 points behind Racing Point in the quest for third in the World Constructors' Championship. Now, Renault has 172 points. They're going to need a miracle to get third.
Yeah.
But it's possible.
It's going to be, basically they need Racing Point and McLaren to have no points. And they have double points. Because if Racing Points gets double, there's some teams that are going to have advantages because straightaways, like you see there's long straights at Abu Dhabi. Like, not McLaren. McLaren will have decent pace, but Racing Point with the straights, Racing Point's going to have decent pace with those straightaways.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Ferrari, now they are 6. I think, anywhere above or behind 6.
Yeah.
I don't think in the World Constructors' Championship, 131 points. AlphaTauri is 7th, 103 points for AlphaTauri. Honda, 8th place. Alfa Romeo, 8 points. Unless something surprisingly happens to the two constructors behind them, and where Haas has 3 points and Williams no points happens, then they might just secure 8th.
Yeah, I don't think Haas is going to get a miracle. I don't think Williams will get a podium. No, Williams will. I know Williams is not going to get a podium. No, I know they improved their speed by 2 seconds, which from last year, 2 seconds is a gain. They're at least not finishing 19th and 20th. Like, there's cars that retire, but even without retirements, there's sometimes 12th and 13th, which is decent. And sometimes they're ahead of the Alfa Romeos and the Haas's, which Haas has regressed a lot, and Alfa Romeo is not the best compared to last year. Last year they had so many points. This year, only 8, and 4 points from Giovinazzi and Raikkonen. People say Gio's bad. I'm like, Raikkonen has the same amount of points.
I mean, he's a world champion in final years of possibly racing Formula One with a car that hasn't been too good this year.
It's also not just the car. It's also the Ferrari engines. Like Haas, Ferrari, and Alfa Romeo, they've struggled.
Struggled greatly.
And this is not going to be in their wheelhouse because a track that you need a lot of power on the straightaways, that's not going to help the Ferrari engines at all. Because you've seen Ferrari having problems with tracks like that have high speed corners. They're just no pace compared to like the Mercedes engine power. I know Williams is a bad example, but the Mercedes, like the Racing Point, they have good speed. I know it's last year's Mercedes copy, but with the power unit, the engine supply of Mercedes has pace on their straights. Renault has decent pace. Honda, they have decent pace, but Ferrari's dropped in performance by. I remember I've seen predictions about Ferrari winning races, which I'm like, that's not gonna happen. Like, it's the same people that picked Ferrari double podium 1 and 2 at Monza. I'm like, or people at Mugello thinking that their paint scheme was the new livery is going to make them fast. It's like changing the paint is not going to make the car fast.
I feel like we always get back to the same song and dance with Ferrari. It's just a routine.
Yeah.
I mean, it's now about 12 years since the last Constructors Championship, 13 since the last Drivers Championship, and despite some close calls in the years following, I just don't know where. I mean, Leclerc is a good driver for a long-term run, but
right now it's just the car's not there. The car's not there in performance.
No, but maybe the new configurations with Formula One starting 2022.
Yeah, because I heard 2021, Ferrari said there's not going to be much. There's going to be a little improvement. But it's like the time they say little improvement. I don't know what they mean by that. It's like the time they said we got upgrades and that made the car just worse. It's like they say we got upgrades, we'll be faster. The car's slower. That's not. When you say upgrades, you don't want to go slower. You want to go faster.
Well, one day, Maranello will have to solve this. So, and they usually will. They are the most decorated constructor in Formula One history, without a doubt. But eventually, things will go back to their favor, and that's another idea. Just remember, these teams here, the constructors, everyone are waiting for the next package to come in 2022. This actually their package, the next car 2022 was supposed to happen next year. Then the situation involving our world and resulted in that testing and everything getting ready for next year. That of course hindered the progress. So one more year, new car.
But people are still saying that. I wonder, the Mercedes W11 was a powerful car. I wonder about the W12, how powerful that car. If they built that, if people say, oh, the W12 should be less power, that'll be weird. The W12 so faster than the W11 that people are like, why did Mercedes bring this car now? It's just Mercedes. I remember when they brought in testing, I'm like, they're fast in testing. That's when Ferrari tried that, and they were just slower. And then we saw them on the track for the first time, and Mercedes just doing these fastest laps. Yeah, so we'll see what happens with the end of the season for F1, and figure out who's going to be in the rest of the seats, which Hamilton's still not confirmed. I think he wants to try to finish out the season, then be confirmed or something.
Yeah, I think we're going to see Hamilton return. If that happens, he'll have a chance to chase 8 and surpass Schumacher's record of most championships. Now, if Hamilton does return, there will be another challenge that he can accomplish that's never happened. 100 poles. 100 poles could have happened if he Sakhir, and then he would get 99, and then possibly 100 if Abu Dhabi happens. But 12 wins in a single.
Oh yeah, he could have. Yeah,
Hamilton has never exceeded 11 wins in one championship season before. But I know he scored 11 wins in 2014, and I think 2017 and 18, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it's also like, other than that, Hamilton's seat is the AlphaTauri seat, which rumor is Yuki Tsunoda, who is a Red Bull development driver he drove the Carlin team for the Carlin team. He could get a super license. He's eligible because you got to finish in the top 5 in points in F2. He finished 3rd, 1 point behind Ialot, so he has a chance to be in F1. We'll see what Red Bull.
Albon's not confirmed.
Oh yeah,
Red Bull either. I can't believe I forgot about Albon.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
What does that mean for Red Bull? And I might be bold for saying this, but who could fill that seat? He might not be in the Red Bull program. I mean, hey, Pierre Gasly. Yes, he won the Italian Grand Prix.
But I thought he's actually confirmed with AlphaTauri for next year.
Staying with AlphaTauri.
Kvyat's
I know Kvyat has
he had
been
a chance,
outperformed.
but Kvyat actually had a chance. 2015, he actually did better than Ricciardo, but 2016, his 2016 season at the start was so like, That's when I remember at China when Sebastian Vettel called him the torpedo. That's where he got his nickname. And then Russia, Sebastian got taken out by Kvyat. And then
Kvyat's home track.
And then Kvyat gets booted out for Max, which Max won in his first start after both Mercedes drivers, Rosberg and Hamilton, crashed out on the first lap.
I still can't believe that happened. Even 4 years later.
Yeah, I just remember seeing that. I'm like, what are you doing? That's one thing that Mercedes didn't want to happen.
I mean, Rosberg and Hamilton neck between two teammates. It was like Prost and Senna at one point. For top honors.
Yeah.
I mean, we know Alonso will return next year for Renault, which will be rebranded as Alpine F1 team.
And his number could be 14 because that's his personalized number, so it could be 14. That numbers are usually confirmed during the testings. But we know Ocon's in the other seat. We know McLaren will have Ricciardo and Norris, Ferrari, Leclerc, and Sainz. Which I just remember those memes when it was Sainz searching up how to get out of a contract, how to get a test driver role at Williams because the Ferrari was slow. I remember those memes.
Let's not forget about the situation amongst engines here.
Yeah.
Honda will not be in Formula One after 2021. That is confirmed, which will affect constructors, especially ones like Red Bull
and AlphaTauri. They're the only two with the Honda engines, and Mercedes can't field them because there's a limit of Mercedes only, because next year McLaren's going to have Mercedes engines. You could only do, for engines, you could only have 4 teams, which have Mercedes. Next year you'll have McLaren, Williams, and Racing Point. Or now Aston Martin next year will have not Williams, they don't have engines. Mercedes engines. Because you could only do 4 teams, not 5, 4 teams. They could only do 4 teams. Ferrari, I don't think they want to have Ferrari engines with how they're performing.
I mean, I think they could progress. Well, about in the next 3-4 years. How about McLaren? McLaren and Mercedes will reunite for the first time in over 6 years.
I feel like the only legit thing I feel like possibly is Renault engines. Because Mercedes, they can't. They have too many teams, with McLaren adding to that. Ferrari will have, because you can only do 4 teams. The problem is, AlphaTauri and Red Bull, that's 2 different teams. You can't have 5 teams with one constructor, like engine. You can only do 4, so the only possible one is Renault, because next year, the only team with Renault engines is Renault. Because...
Well, I mean, they are... Yeah, essentially, Renault might stay. And, I'm getting sick of fans calling Alonso's return to F1 as a publicity stunt. I don't think it's a publicity stunt. He's going to... He's going to score a lot of points next year.
Alonso, at least he's in a car that's actually quite decent, because the last time he was in F1, when he drove for McLaren in those Honda years, that was just the running with a GP.
It was disastrous. He called the car a GP2 engine,
and it's kind of funny. They called it at Honda's home track at Suzuka. of all places to say that, the GP2 engine at Honda's home race in Japan. Yeah, that's a word that you don't want to usually say that at their home track, but like that's the country that Honda's from. Yeah, you don't want to say that at that track. Like,
right.
But McLaren Renault, at least when they got the Renault engines actually had more speed than those Honda engines.
Hey, let me mention this. Lando Norris and McLaren have a bright future, but would Danny Ricciardo excel? Hey, is it wrong for me to predict Danny Ricciardo going on the podium occasionally next year?
I feel like Ricciardo could get podiums because I know Ricciardo's a good driver, but with the Mercedes engines, that's going to help the team perform better because Renault engines, I know they're good, but they're not Mercedes engines.
No.
Whoever are the engineers at Mercedes just build
the turbo hybrid era. It's all been Mercedes in the World Constructors Championship every year.
Yeah, you just see.
Existed.
Yeah, you just see just like Mercedes has all, and also people don't like Mercedes dominating. Well,
it gets tiring.
I know it gets boring, but the thing about Mercedes, they know where to put the money at. They're focusing on their car. They're focusing on the car. Red Bull focuses on sponsorship. I see more at Red Bull's page. Sponsor. I'm like, are you focusing on the car? Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So, Formula 2 there. Let's
yeah.
That F2 championship came to an end this past weekend, and start off the feature race. Yuki Tsunoda.
Yep.
Had a very impressive weekend. Could have swept both races, to be honest. Tsunoda won from pole in the feature race, and with dominance. Granujo second, Filipe Drugovich third.
Yeah, there's a reason that Drugovich got there. We'll say it later. Why? Yeah.
Fourth place, Robert Schwartzman. Fifth place, Callum Ilott. At that time, Callum was still fighting for a championship. Mick Schumacher got a valuable fastest lap point.
Yep.
Finishing sixth. Jan Daruvula, seventh. Dan Ticktum, Nikita Mazepin, and Pedro Piquet, points paying finishers in the feature race.
And the reason that Mazepin got ninth, he got 2 5-second penalties. The first one was for forcing Tsunoda towards the pit lane, towards the pit wall. The second one was pushing Drugovich off the track. That Drugovich actually broke one of the brake markers. And yeah, that was. I remember just seeing that. I'm like, what the? I'm like, oh my. Yeah, he was forcing him off the track, and the FIA noticed, and they're like, nope, you're getting 10-second penalties. They gave him a 10-second penalty, put him down to 9th, which made Schwartzman pass him in points, so he fell down in points because of that, which that's how Drugovich got back on the podium. Yep.
And on Sunday for the sprint race. How about Jan Daruvula?
Yep.
22 years old from Mumbai. First win in Formula 2.
Yep.
Driving for Carlin. Daruvula picked up the win. In second place, Yuki Tsunoda with the fastest lap.
Yep.
So close to completing a perfect weekend in Bahrain in Bahrain Part 2.
Yep.
Third place, Dan Ticktum. Granujo, fourth. Robert Schwartzman, fifth. Giuliano Alessi, sixth.
Yep.
Luca Giotto, Filipe Drugovich rounded up the points, 7th and 8th. Callum Ilott fell shy.
Oh,
by 2 positions. He really pushed the car and just may have burned the tires a little.
Yeah, and Mick Schumacher, he finished 18th after he locked up his left front tire on the first lap in turn 4 to not hit Dan Ticktum, and then he was slowly noticing he was going to puncture a tire, so he pitted. But the reason that the way that for Ilott to win the championship, he had to finish first or second, with Schumacher finishing last. Like finishing out of the points, but it didn't work out for Ilott. So, and also, it was also the first Indian driver to win in Formula 2. So, yeah, people were mocking Mahavir Raghunathan last year because
no mocking Jaron Derulo.
Jihan Derulo. Yeah.
That was a big time fight for the lead. There were about 4 or 5 cars.
Oh, him and Dan Ticktum I remember at one point Dan Ticktum was blocking. I remember thinking in my head that what if racing says this, Mr. Blocky Pants? I was thinking about that in my head because Ticktum was always trying to block. And yeah, that was a great battle for the lead with Derulo and Ticktum for multiple laps.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So Mick Schumacher, son of 7-time world champion Michael Schumacher, will win the championship. He won 5 points, or actually no, 15 points over, 14 points over Callum Ilott. Ilott had 201 points. Schumacher 215 points.
Tsunoda got third.
Yep, Yuki Tsunoda had a great charge late in the season. He could have been a factor if there weren't for those retirements and non-points finishes in about the first quarter of the season.
Yeah.
Tsunoda has enough super license points to get into Formula 1 next year, and he's under the Red Bull banner. What does that mean for AlphaTauri and Red Bull? We'll just find out in the off-season.
Yeah.
As F1 wraps up next weekend, or actually this weekend at Abu Dhabi. 4th place in the F2 Championship went to Robert Schwartzman.
Yeah.
Finished ahead of his countryman Nikita Mazepin. Nikita Mazepin and Mick Schumacher will go to Haas F1 next year. They are confirmed for those 2 seats in F1. Haas will have a makeover, and they've been really past due to have these kinds of changes in their organization.
Yeah, because I know that Magnussen's not the worst driver, but Magnussen has not been performing well, or Grosjean. But people are thinking already about Mick Schumacher winning race. I'm like, he's not going to win in a Haas. Haas is not fast. They have Ferrari engines, which that's already going to lead to less power compared to Mercedes and stuff. But, like, Haas is not capable of winning races compared to other teams. So Mick Schumacher's not going to go dominate the sport. And people are comparing him to his father, Michael. I'm like, he's not Michael. Like, Michael is Michael. Mick is Mick. They're 2 different people.
But, I mean, who should be surprised to see critics comparing the 2 Schumachers? Looking down the F2 Championship final standings, Grenougeau, 6th place. Christian Lundgaard, 7th. Louis Delatraz, 8th. Philippe Drugovich and Luca Giotto, top 10. Outside the top 10, Dan Ticktum, Jehan Derulo, Marcus Armstrong, Jack Aiken, Norbaro Matsushita, Jerry Vips, Giuliano Alessi, Artem Markelov, Roy Nissany, and Pedro Piquet, top 20 in final championship standings.
Oh my gosh.
And in the team's championship, the final standings in the team's championship, with 392 points, Prema Racing picked up not only the Drivers' Championship with Mick Schumacher, but the team's championship in 2020. Formula 3 champion Oscar Piastri will be part of that team next year in F2.
Yeah.
UNI Virtuosi Racing with 352.5 points, 2nd in final standings. Carlin, 3rd, 2 points above High Tech Grand Prix in Art Grand Prix 5th, MP Motorsport 6th, Jerry's Racing System 7th, Doms in 8th, Campos Racing 9th, BWT HWA Race Lab 10th, and Trident 11th in the final standings.
Huh. I actually was looking through. I guess there's a couple of drivers for F2 confirmed. Ralph Boschung is confirmed at Campos. Prema will have Piastri and Schwartzman. Schwartzman is returning to Prema. And Filip Drogovic is confirmed at Uni Virtuosi Racing, which is they're the only drivers confirmed for next year. So basically now Prema is going to have the number 1 and 2, because for F2 numbers, it's wherever they finish in the team. So Prema will have the number 1 and 2. So basically Trident will have the 24 and 25 number because they finish last in the team's championship. And also, I wanted to say that that Antoine Hubert award that went to Yuki Tsunoda. Most pole awards, Yuki Tsunoda, because Tsunoda's just been fast in qualifying. So, and F2 was interesting. It was an interesting season. We had
tons of action. It was competitive, to say the least.
But people are wondering if there was a full-time driver that got no points. Yes, Guilherme Samaya for Campos got 0 points. All the Campos points were Jack Aitken's points. Boschung did not score points in his 2 races, and Samaya did not score any points at all.
And how about Theo Pocher?
Yep.
I think he'll be racing F2 next year.
Yeah, he'll be racing F2. He ran for both Bahrain races at both different layouts for the BWT HWA Race Lab team because of Alesi, who was there, went to MP replacing Matsushita. So they decided to put him for these 2 races, which he had decent races until in the sprint race at the normal Bahrain layout when his fire extinguisher just decided to it just started spraying it randomly, just not normal. But yeah, F2's been interesting, really competitive.
I'm excited for next year.
Yeah.
I didn't watch too much F2 and or GP2 as it was in the past.
Yeah.
But now I think I'm.
Yeah, I've been watching since 2019 at Bahrain, which I just didn't know about until I saw that George Russell, when he joined Williams, I'm like F2 championship. I searched it up because I didn't know about it until then. I started watching more and more races because F2, it's just competitive.
Very competitive because they all run the same car. Everyone is on an even playing field usually most of the time.
Less like the cars are less like complicated and compared to F1, so there's less dirty air, which makes a lot of overtakes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So from open wheel racing to stock car racing, we go with the greatest short track race of the year in terms of late model competition. That is indeed the 53rd annual Snowball Derby in Pensacola, Florida at Five Flags Speedway. The 2020 edition of this race was absolutely entertaining, was it, Justin?
Yes, it was an interesting race. It was a really interesting race.
I think it was entertaining.
Yep.
We had over 50 plus entries, 55 entries for 36 spots.
Yeah.
And to get into the race, that's a tall order. But to win the race, that puts you on a whole different level. Like that accomplishment on its own is one of the toughest things to do.
Yeah.
And why is that? Well, the Snowball Derby is in the off season.
Yep. December.
In December, most of American racing, it's over. NASCAR is
done,
finished, and it's a week after Thanksgiving. Very convenient. The track makes the rules. Five Flag Speedway, not usually like a governing body of racing.
Yeah.
Of late model racing, like Cars World Tour. They're maybe the same specs, but a little differently. It's that you can enter. And let me just put some names out there: Eric Jones, Chase Elliott, Kyle Busch.
Yeah.
Some names here. Rich Bickle. The list goes on with successful drivers that have won the Snowball Derby. And Ty Majeski, after dominating the race, only to find Heartbreak last year, finally wins it.
Yep.
I'm looking for the Snowball Derby results. Yeah. So Ty Majeski ended up winning the race. He's from Wisconsin, best known from iRacing and the path he took to get to NASCAR. Derek Thorne, who led most of the laps, finished in second. Chase Elliott, the two-time winner of the Snowball Derby, finished third. Fourth place, Chandler Smith. Fifth place, Caden Honeycutt. He led a handful of laps. Cole Butcher, Kyle Busch, two-time winner and a two-time Cup Series champion. Seventh place, Grant Enfinger, Derek Griffith, and Kyle Plott were the top 10. 11th through 20th, Corey Heim, Jeremy Doss, Travis Braden, Daniel Dye, Derek Kraus, Caden Lapsevich, Jeremy Pate, John DeAngelis, Matt Craig, and Kyle Sieg. 20th, first to 25th, Paul Schaefer Jr., Audrey Grill, Ross Kenseth, Jake Garcia, Boris Jurkovic. And then the rest of the results, they were Dan Fredrickson, Jesse DeDilly, Casey Roderick, Steven Nasse. How many times winning this race?
Oh, jeez. Yeah.
Michael Atwell, Hunter Robbins, Chris Davidson, Preston Peltier, Bubba Pollard.
Not
winning the big race on Florida's Panhandle. Logan Boyett and Mason Diaz were your final finishers in that event.
Yep. It was an interesting race for people that didn't watch because some people can't afford it. I watched it from a Twitch streamer that his computer crashed twice, so I missed a couple laps because that, but it was a good race. I saw the race and it was really interesting. This time it was not pushed to today, like last year was pushed to Monday, and then we did the podcast without knowing the official results. And then a couple hours later, Nasse got disqualified. And then that's how Travis Braden got the win.
Yep, and while Travis Braden didn't have the best race, finishing 13th, it was Ty Majeski who played it smart.
Yeah. I actually picked him to win. I remember I picked Majeski to win. I remember picking Majeski to win because I knew he was good last year. He almost won last year until he got turned. But I knew he was going to have a fast car. And I just remember, and there was two drivers that caught my eye. Chase Elliott and Chandler Smith, they were in the last chance qualifier. They made it into the main event. They start at the back. and they finished up front, which is really impressive.
Five Flag Speedway is hard to pass.
It is. It is a tough track to pass. Really tough.
Really old pavement. Challenging on tires. In fact, that's where they put out 2 competition cautions in the race. They introduced that in the past few years to help smaller teams out.
Yeah, because tire wear is another issue. You push too hard, your tires go off really fast. Like, remember at one point Kyle Busch started dropping because he pushed the tires so much that they started falling off. Which Five Flag Speedway is a tough racetrack.
Yep. In the Snowflake 100, the kart event.
Oh my god!
The main race on Sunday happened without controversy. Jake Johnson, a New England driver, was given the race win after, yes, Steven Nasse and, yes, Bubba Pollard the final corner, and the track officials deemed contact as
oh my god,
giving the win to Jake Johnson, taking the win away from Steven Nasse, essentially.
Yeah, which people are like, that's not dirty. Nasse lift Bubba's tires off the ground. I guess that's not dirty.
Bubba Pollard.
But Ty Majeski, people said Ty Majeski was dirty. He didn't lift Derek Thorne's tires off the ground, but Bubba Pollard's tires were off the ground when Nasse made contact.
The real issue I think about that incident was it intentional? I just don't know. I think it was a bump and run that resulted in a spin by Bubba Pollard.
It's just like,
I mean, we know people taking drivers out. Just look at almost half of the NASCAR Truck Series finishes at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park in Ontario.
Or most races at Bowman Gray Stadium.
Bowman Gray Stadium makes money off post-race fights.
It's like when Bubba Wallace shoved a cop and almost got arrested that night when he was trying to fight Brett Moffitt. It's like stuff.
Yeah, one of the few times that the NASCAR Regional Series in modern day brought those touring levels to Bowman Gray. I mean, hey, it sells out. Winston-Salem sell out, but
and that's when Corey LaJoie won his first race, and Corey LaJoie's car was clean somehow.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, trying to keep your car clean at a short track is a very, very
Bowman Gray and Bowman Gray Stadium's a really short track. You can
Bowman Gray. Back to Pensacola here. It was very chilly. The Snowball Derby was chillier than last year's.
It was. I saw people wearing sweaters. And all that.
It looked like a football game up north or something.
Yeah.
I think overall the weekend was great. No rain.
Yeah. Yeah, not like last year where Sunday's like rain, push it to Monday, and then we had to watch the race and then did the podcast literally half an hour after.
Only to find out Steven Nasse got DQ'd. That sucks. I wanted Nasse to win, and I was happy that he won. And then I checked it off the list, and then tech inspection happened.
And then Travis Brandon's the winner, and he led 0 laps. Brandon led 0 laps last year, and he won it. Yeah, so don't sell it. Basically, if you win a race like Snowball Derby, NASCAR, if you don't celebrate too early. Just wait till tech inspection. I know Ross Chastain learned that at Iowa last year. Yeah.
All right. So outside of that, there was another race weekend another series that just finished this past weekend in their season. That was the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series, rounds 4 and 5, and in the season, races 7, 8, 9, and 10 of the 10 race schedule all happened in the past 3 days, and in the end, the Euro Series wrapped up. Another, I'd say, fun season to watch. I'm still new to watching the Euro Series, but once you get to learn the series and have time to watch, it becomes interesting and entertaining. Alon Day from Ashdod, Israel, won his third NASCAR Wheel and Euro Series championship this past weekend. And hear me out. From Croatia all the way to Valencia, the past few rounds, he had a streak of poles, 5 poles in a row.
Wow.
And that eventually, because you get bonus points for winning the pole in that series, fastest lap, dominating the fastest lap. And while Lasse Sorensen, the Danish driver related to Marco Sorensen from Aston Martin Racing, had a good charge towards the end, it just wasn't enough. 20 points separated the two. So Alon Day, third championship, 2017 and 18, and now 2020. Lars Hesman's third in the final standings, 390 points. Lucas Lasseret, fourth with 356 points. And fifth place, Mark Goossens, the sports car driver from Belgium, with 352 points. Now, in Euro 2, the Euro 2 division, which is a second-tier championship, the final standings was Vittorio Girelli, an Italian driver for PK Racing, with 6 points above Tobias Dausenhauer.
Wow.
Winning the championship when he won 5 out of the last 6 races in the Euro 2 Cup.
Wow.
Sounds dominant, right? Not enough. Because Tobias was on the podium almost every race in the past 3 rounds, except 2 of them, which were both in the Valencia rounds when he was 4th, but managed to get the fastest lap and the pole, so that helped Tobias catch up, but it wasn't enough. Third place, Alessandro Brigatti. So, well done for Brigatti. He had 379 points. Fourth place, Vladimir Cesaris with 365 points, and Julia Landauer, who won the Ladies' Cup, was the highest American in the Euro 2 championship with 358 points. In the team's championship, it was Hendricks Motorsport that, not Hendrick Motorsport, Hendricks Motorsport from the Netherlands that won the team's championship with 835 points. In fact, first and second, 747 points. PK Car Sport third with 713 points. Solaris Motorsport and Feed Vict Racing, the 2 Italian teams, 4th and 5th in the final teams championship. So that actually applies to both Euro and Euro 2 points in the NASCAR Wheel and Euro Series. And the end of the season, and another championship that finished, Rally Racing. Successful drivers in Rally Racing seem to just always be there in the end, and that was Sébastien Ogier. The French driver is 2 championships away from his idol, Sébastien Loeb. After they were teammates in Citroën for quite a while, Loeb won 9 championships in the World Rally Championship, most of all time. So 7 championships for Sébastien Ogier, and his 6th with co-driver Julien Ingrassia, who won the World Rally Championship for co-drivers. The pair drove for Toyota Gazoo Racing WRT. However, the World Championship for manufacturers did not go to them after a close fight. It was Hyundai Shell Mobis WRT that edged them out in the World Rally Championship for manufacturers. 241 points for Hyundai, 236 points for Toyota Gazoo Racing, and 129 points for M Sport 4 WRT. The other Hyundai entry, Hyundai 2C Competition from France, entered in the second half of the season because they were unable to show up at the first 3 rounds. when they scored 8 points. So that's the end for FIA WRC in 2020. They were actually one of the last few racing organizations to continue on during that dreadful week of March when everything was shutting down. Rally Mexico actually continued on for just a few more days, but then the final stage was wiped off the table because they had to leave and get back before restrictions started.
Oh yeah, the week that that was so interesting. Yeah, I remember being like bored all weekend watching random TV shows.
I'm just being stunned at the world. But that week, the WRC continued on just a few days after everything shut down until, travel restrictions would affect the teams and drivers from actually returning home because of, how everything happened with flights and...
Yeah, you can't travel during a pandemic. It's not the brightest idea.
Well, in March when everything went crazy, they need to get home as soon as possible. That's why the final stage was shut down. Now, this weekend, speaking of restrictions, we'll get into that a little bit more. The Formula One season, the World Championship is finally coming to an end. The Abu Dhabi Grand Prix at Yas Marina Circuit for round 17 of the final race, the 17-round World Championship this year.
Yep.
All comes to an end. And the Intercontinental Gt Challenge will finish their 4-race tour within 9 hours of Kyalami in South Africa. But first, the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. We'll discuss the Grand Prix and what to expect. So Lewis Hamilton, he won the race last year in 2009, the very first race at the circuit. It was won by Sebastian Vettel. Lewis Hamilton won more races than the only 2 drivers that had multiple wins. Hamilton 5 and Schumacher. Sebastian Vettel 3. During the time when it looked like people were going to question whether Vettel's dominance might be better than Schumacher's.
Then
he went to Ferrari. I'm like, okay, that's part 2 of Schumacher's success, right?
And then Lewis Hamilton and Mercedes just like championship,
exactly
wins.
Constructor wins, 6 wins from Mercedes and 3 wins from Red Bull. Now, Kimi Räikkönen did end his winless streak in 2012 when he drove the Lotus to victory.
Yeah, and then Lotus was interesting. Lotus had the interesting driver lineup in 2014. Grosjean and Maldonado. When Maldonado flipped over, who was it again? Esteban Gutierrez at Bahrain in 2014. Yeah.
All right. So with all that, the constructors that have high expectations entering Abu Dhabi this weekend. Racing Point, McLaren, and Renault. They're all in the hunt for 3rd in World Constructors Championship honors. As far as Racing Point and McLaren are concerned, only 10 points separate the 2 constructors.
Yeah.
From Racing Point's worst race of the year to their best race of the year.
Yep.
McLaren will need to do something very, very strong.
Yeah, because another thing that's going to help, that's not going to be helpful for McLaren, is that Racing Point has Mercedes engines, and the Racing Points have speed. And there is a lot of straights. If you look at the track map at Abu Dhabi, you see the straightaways. There's a decent amount of straights and fast corners. There's fast corners, slow corners, but straightaways. Basically, the straightaways are the thing that will help Racing Point prevail. like Racing Point, I feel like they're going to have decent pace this weekend, which is going to be tough for McLaren. If Racing Point has decent pace, McLaren will have to find some pace.
But they have two great drivers in Lando Norris and Carlos Sainz, and that will be Carlos Sainz's final start for McLaren.
But what about Perez and
Perez? Perez is still uncertain.
Yeah, and Perez might impress. Perez will impress this weekend.
You know what? That will be the end of Perez's 6-year tenure with what was Sahara Force India.
Oh, yeah.
Then turned into Racing Point F1.
Yeah, which people forget when.
I'm just so happy he won that race. Personally, like, there is nothing greater than defeating the odds, fighting against adversity, and being there when it counts the most.
Well, 2020 has been weird because Pierre Gasly also got a win, which nobody expected. Basically, 2020's just been a weird year, but I heard this time nobody picked the podium of 2 Racing Points and a Renault. Like that one person in Finland put 20 cents for a bet of Gasly first, Sainz second, and Stroll third. Somebody in Finland put that bet and won £33,000.
Someone who would actually should be crazy for making a prediction like that.
But it's
there's always 1 or 2 people in the world who would actually go for a bet like that.
Yeah, and he actually got it right, which was just so crazy.
He deserves $1 billion.
Yeah, because I remember I just picked Hamilton for that Monza race because nobody expected Gasly to win that race, or nobody. Yeah, like 2020's been a weird year.
And it continues to get weird, and I think all of us can agree that it's time for 2020 to end and never happen like this again. All right, so outside of everything that happened in the last 3 days, what about silly season? The silly season will continue, and we also learned about some schedule changes. The ARCA Menard Series calendar has been announced for 2021. They'll start the traditional 200-mile race at Daytona in February and finish at Kansas Speedway. This is the ARCA Menard Series on the national level, not the regional series, which some races are confirmed. I think it all comes down to race weekends and companion events.
And also, I heard that the TV schedules for ARCA and NASCAR has not been released. That's usually released end of December into January, which we'll figure that out.
Yeah, we'll figure that. Actually, there's one more race that we haven't predicted yet, and that is the 9 Hours of Kyalami. Well, still looking for an entry list on that.
Well, I almost grabbed the TV remote. I don't think that's not my mouse, so that's not going to work out to.
Yes, the Intercontinental Gt Challenge comes to an end this weekend. There are only 12 cars overall. For the 9 Hours of Kyalami.
There it is, Joseph. I just sent the link.
Oh, thanks.
Yep. Not many cars, yeah.
And it's understandable, knowing the situations that many of these teams are either getting ready for Daytona or some teams they're about to prepare for the 24 Hours of Dubai, which has an enormous entry list.
Whoa. The Steelers are defeated. They're 11-1. The Washington just won.
That is amazing.
And I know Hunter's not happy. He wanted the Steelers.
288.
He wanted the Steelers to be undefeated, but they got defeated. Wow.
It was eventually going to happen.
Yeah.
So 12 cars overall.
Yeah.
Compete for the 9 Hours of Kyalami this year. The South Africa government imposed some really heavy restrictions on travel and quarantine, and teams understandably opted out.
Yeah.
Sports car racing, they're thinking the long-term future. Those teams most likely are preparing for the Daytona 24 as well as the 24 hours of Dubai, which has a growing entry list, which I think we might get about 70, 80 cars. I mean, it's only December 7th. That race is in more than a month from now. It's insane. But for the 12 GT3s that are showing up, 2 of them involve Bentley, which Bentley confirmed that their factory-supported GT3 program will come to an end after this upcoming race, which is very unfortunate. Of Audis, you have the factory-supported Audis, 2 of them on the entry list. Another Audi from Car Collection Motorsport.
Yeah.
2 BMWs. Walking Horse Motorsport prepared BMW M6 GT3s with factory drivers.
1 Honda.
Yes, Team Honda Racing has the NSX. And Porsche, we have Dynamic Motorsport.
Audi Sport Team Car Collection. Interesting.
I don't think that is an out. That's not a Porsche. No.
Well, why does it say it's a
that's
Porsche?
an out. That's an Audi. No way. That's.
But it says Porsche.
Yeah, I know. I saw that too.
GPX Racing has a Porsche. And
Silver Class and Pro-Am. Well, the cars actually have capacity to compete for the overall win, but they're the only 2 cars in those classes, and I think we both there. Let's make predictions. I'll start with you, Justin.
Okay, for me, my pick is the number 34. Walking Horse Motorsports BMW, driven by Augusto Farfus, Nicky Katzberg, and Sheldon van der Linde. Yeah.
With that said, my pick, and this is actually a pretty tough one, but GPX Racing, Porsche, number 36, Matt Campbell, Patrick Pilet, Matthew Jaminet. Can they defeat Drivers' Championship leaders Earl Bamber, Lawrence Vantore? We'll have to find out. They're in contention for the Intercontinental Drivers' Championship. They fell just short of the Michelin Endurance Cup over in IMSA, despite winning the 12 Hours of Sebring, 1 and 2.
Oh my gosh. I just saw that on that number 44 Audi. I see on the right it says Audi R8 LMS, but then it says manufacturer. It says it's a Porsche. I'm like, that doesn't make sense.
No, back to silly season. Yeah. BMW and longtime German auto racing team, Team Schnitzer, after decades of partnership, they will go separate ways after financial problems ensued in 2020. Team Schnitzer Racing has a long history of success in DTM, in touring car racing, sports car racing, American Le Mans GT Championship 2001, the 24 Hours of Nürburgring in 2010. Remember, BMW went on a 10-year drought after 2010. It was Team Schnitzer in 2010 that was the last win after before a 10-year dry spell when Rover Racing won this year with the 2020 edition.
Oh yeah. I just remembered that they won.
Right. Well, beforehand, it was a Team Schnitzer. They won the 24 Hours of Nürburgring in 2004 and 2005 with the M3 GTR. In the 2005 race, Boris Said became the first American driver to win the 24 Hours of Nürburgring in the final race for the M3 GTR V8 car. What about the Spa 24 Hours? The Macau Greer race. 24 Hours of Le Mans, 1999, when Toyota had that puncture in the final hour.
Yep.
Giving the overall win to Team BMW, a one-lap victory. In other news, the Daytona 24 hours will look a little bit differently next year. There'll be a 100-minute qualifying race preceding the big event.
Yep.
And we'll see different changes made for the 24 hours of Le Mans as well in June. Qualifying sessions and weekend schedules will look differently over there. The FIA World Endurance Championship will have different qualifying methods. See how that turns out.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Supercars 2021 schedule is confirmed.
Okay.
There are 12 race weekends confirmed for the Repco Supercars Championship beginning next year. On the 27th and 28th of February, there'll be the Mount Panorama 500, which is a race that will be at Bathurst, not the Bathurst 1000, but a season opening race in Mount Panorama.
Yeah.
Melbourne will return as part of the Formula One Australian Grand Prix weekend. So week 2, third week, Tasmania Super Sprint. The Bend, Winton, Darwin Triple Crown, Townsville, Sydney Super Night. So Sydney, the track that marked return of racing for the season in June, will be back for round 6. Perth Super Night, so 2 supercar race weekends under the lights. The Bathurst 1000 will be round 10 of the season on the 10th of October, 2021. And after the great race, we have the Auckland Super Sprint over in New Zealand.
Yep.
And in the Gold Coast 600 at Surfers Paradise will mark the end of the championship on the 4th and 5th of December. But the biggest takeaway, and I think it's agreeable upon many fans alike, has to be the Adelaide 500, the season opening 500 kilometer double race format in 20, or that has 250 kilometers in each event. Last year, it's always a hit with fans. Last year, this year, 2014, that crazy battle for second between McLaughlin and Whincup, not scheduled for 2021 due to the government withdrawing support in South Australia due to financial actions after COVID-19.
Yeah.
Hard not to understand that city circuits are pretty complicated.
They are.
But the Bathurst season opener, I'm still wondering, will that be a success? Is that going to take anything away from the Bathurst 1000?
Like, I don't know. It's like Bathurst is an interesting track. Like, I've seen Bathurst. I've raced, not real life, but like, no, the only experience of Bathurst I have is on Forza 6, Forza 7. Because real life, no, I'm not that good to be racing at Bathurst, because even in video games, I'm not the best at Bathurst in a video game.
Neither am I. But like as a season opener, because the 12-hour race at Bathurst was removed, which is another crown jewel that happens around that time of the year, January, February. But unfortunately, we're not going to see that because of travel reasons. Australian quarantine rules are pretty strict. You have to spend like 1 week or 2 weeks and request to travel outside the country, and will still apply next year. And many of the GT top teams won't have that ability for January, or February. So no 12 hours of Bathurst, and not to mention, they'll be at Daytona just a week prior, and it won't be simple. So as maybe like a replacement event, we'll see the Bathurst 500. That should be interesting. No Sandown either. I'm still a fan of Sandown, but Danny's here. He's on the stream. Let's bring Danny in.
Hello, everyone.
Pleased to meet you.
Yeah. So I hear you guys talking about Bathurst. So, I compare this to the Daytona 500 as it being the biggest race of the year, or should I say the biggest circuit of the year for NASCAR, and then compare that to Mount Panorama and Bathurst for supercars. Like, it's almost similarities, but it's a great sight to see now. And as for Surfers Paradise being the season finale, I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, and for many teams, this will be the final season for a Holden car. Now, not as an active factory, but the next gen supercars will be out in 2022. That's when many of the Holden teams will change into the Chevrolet Camaro ZL1. That is already confirmed for AAA Race Engineering, the undoubtedly greatest or top level factory supported Holden team. That was confirmed actually just days before the Bathurst 1000.
Yeah.
Speaking of limitations, the limited capacity for the 2021 Daytona 500 that was confirmed by Daytona International Speedway. I think it's just a goal with the flow situation.
Yeah. Because, like, the thing is with because there's been places where, like, where I live, I'm recently, like, the thing is, I get it why they're doing that, because one thing, like, if you're jam-packed over 100,000 people at a racetrack and they're not that much distance, usually if that happens, there would be more COVID cases spiking. They don't want that to happen.
Or maybe just like the most prestigious race of the year, gaining publicity for, not having the seating for what it's supposed to be. I don't know if Daytona International Speedway wants to deal with that kind of backlash yet.
Yeah, no.
Give them credit. All the Florida tracks have been open and bringing, racing back and sports back, essentially.
Yeah, but if you can't go to the Daytona 500 because of the limited capacity, you can watch on TV. It's on. I know the TV deals are not released, but we know Daytona 500 is on Fox.
Yeah, that is true. Okay. Speaking of the Daytona 500, we're still not confirmed with entries yet in the 500. There are
teams that are TBA. There's also a rumor about NY Racing Team coming back. You know that team?
What team?
The team used to be NY Racing Team used to be known as Extreme Motorsports. That team that Quapple's car was stolen, that team, they're back. They're going to have their number 44 entry. Part-time with an unknown driver. It's just like...
April Fools, right?
Nope. They posted on their Instagram.
Wow.
with 2021 and their logo number 44. I'm like, okay.
Well, this should be interesting.
Yeah, it's like there's still drivers to be confirmed in the Cup Series because there's still drivers to be confirmed. They're not confirmed. Like the second front row seat is unconfirmed. McDowell was recently confirmed in the 34. The 38's unconfirmed. Like there's still a couple teams for drivers to be confirmed.
What about the Daytona 24 Hours? What have we learned? An all-star team consisting of NASCAR champion Jimmy Johnson, Mike Rockenfeller, Simon Pagenaud, Kamui Kobayashi, the greatest drivers.
Yeah.
In Action Express Racing Cadillac for the DPI class, contending for the overall win in the Daytona 24 next year. Jimmy Johnson has not raced in the Rolex 24 since 2011, and he's been on the podium twice with second place finishes. So the seven-time champion already venturing outside of NASCAR, and he did before or haven't done in a long time.
Yeah.
That is going to be exciting. I mean, how about Mike Rockenfeller, the DTM champion? Let's not forget 2 class wins at Le Mans in overall 2010.
Also, Simon Pagenaud, who is an IndyCar champ, he's also in that entry.
And Kobayashi.
Yep.
Kobayashi, the previous race winner.
Yeah.
I think, you know what? It goes without saying that Johnson, Kobayashi, Rockenfeller, and Pagenaud are going to win the 2021 Rolex 24.
That's possible.
That's my prediction. I'm good. I'm already locking it in right now. That's my prediction. This is an all-star lineup we're talking about.
Yeah.
Kamui Kobayashi drives so well in the rain. And he's actually the reigning world endurance champion.
Yeah.
However, Kobayashi never won the 24 Hours of Le Mans. He's been on the podium 4 times with the best finish of second, and a 2-time defending 24 Hours of Daytona winner. So there's that. Mike Rockenfeller, as I mentioned, DTM champion. Simon Pagenaud. Pagenaud's numbers are just incredible. He's never won the 24 Hours of Daytona, but if you look at his numbers when he drove for Le Mans, almost won the race, had one of the most incredible drives in the Peugeot LMP1 back in 2011, chasing down the Audi R18 that ended up winning the race 9 years ago. Just one of the craziest Le Mans classics that were in the 2010s. But Jimmy Johnson is not a bad road course racer whatsoever, despite his numbers in stock cars, being a 7-time Cup Series champion. Jimmy Johnson's career started in off-road racing.
Yep.
But in 2005 and 2008, Jimmy Johnson was on the podium in the 24 Hours of Daytona, finishing second.
Yeah.
So could this be it? And remember, the person who brought Johnson into NASCAR, sorry to cut you off there, Danny. What did he do a year after retiring from NASCAR?
He won the Rolex 24.
Yes, Jeff Gordon.
Yeah.
I think this is a momentum shift with Jeff Gordon retiring out of NASCAR and winning the Rolex 24 the next year. I think it comes to show with Johnson retiring this year, he's going to win the 24 Hours of Daytona next year. Sorry.
I don't even know what the rest of the entry list will look like. There are other questions out there. I mean, hey.
Yeah, we're
you
still.
also have to keep in mind.
Yeah.
Taylor Racing
Yeah.
Yeah, their lineup's actually confirmed, but
but
and they are the defending champions.
like that team, like Wayne Taylor Racing.
Defending Michelin Endurance Cup champions.
But like Wayne Taylor Racing, they're just endurance. The endurance races, they just perform so well in the endurance races.
They are stellar.
Yeah.
All right, what other news we have out there? Speaking of endurance racing, the World Endurance Championship team High Class Racing next year. High Class Racing will have an all Danish lineup. So the 2021 World Endurance Championship will have I forgot who's in there. I know Jan Magnussen will be part of the lineup.
I'm looking right now.
Jan Magnussen and like 3 other drivers will be in that car most likely. Jan Magnussen, by the way, his son Kevin Magnussen is going endurance racing.
Yep.
Kevin Magnussen will be with Chip Ganassi Racing in the DPI with Rainier van der Zand. That's what I know for now. What about the Dubai 24 Hours? Entry list continues to grow. We've exceeded 60 cars.
Okay.
Volkswagen earlier this week announced withdrawal from factory support in motorsport in an attempt to change from gas-powered cars to electric cars. They will no longer support Volkswagen Motorsport teams, and that's just a shift of the era. BMW will pull out of Formula E at the end of the year. So BMW and Andretti, what does that mean? Who knows? I think that's the end of this podcast. So we'll be back next week.
Yep.
Oh, and one last thing. Santino Ferrucci.
Yeah.
Be going from Indy cars to stock cars. We'll drive in the Xfinity Series for Our Motorsports in 2021 for at least 20 races that was announced earlier today.
That will be very interesting to see.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and catch all the races. Only not many races, but try to, if you could wake up early, not 8:05 a.m. Eastern for the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix.
Easy.
If for me that's easy. Compared to, there's some people that always wake up at like noon, because I don't know. Some people just wake up at noon for some reason.
Well, we'll be back next week for episode 89 of the Bully Yellow Line podcast. I can't believe it. This is really this weekend. Really like the last big weekend of motorsports.
And also, I wanted to say, do not forget that Chandler Smith will be in the 18 truck full time. If you didn't know, he'll be running for Kyle Busch Motorsports full time in the 18 Toyota Tundra, alongside John Hunter Nemechek, which that's a good lineup for the full time drivers.
Stellar.
Yep.
So I think this marks the end of episode 88. We'll be back with episode 89 next week to recap the final Grand Prix of the season in Formula One in Abu Dhabi. And 9 hours of Kyle Lamy, the final endurance race of the the Intercontinental GT Challenge.
I was about to say, IMSA is not part of the 9 hours of Kalami. Last time I checked.
It's SRO, Intercontinental GT Challenge. Yeah. And just three more episodes left in 2020 for this podcast, and then starting episode 91.
Wait, 80.
Oh, not actually. 92 will be in 2021.
Yeah, because 89, 90, 91. Yeah, 92 will be on January 4th.
Yep.
Yep.
So, thanks for watching episode 88 for Danny. Thanks for coming for this one. You showed up late.
No problem.
Justin, I'm Joe. As usual, have a good one.